The 2025 Gold Cup is right around the corner, and it carries major implications for the USMNT, especially for Mauricio Pochettino, who's still finding his footing ahead of the 2026 World Cup. This will be the only tournament he manages before the big stage, making it a critical opportunity to evaluate the squad, build chemistry, and set the tone. It raises the question, how important is the Gold Cup really? To dig into that, I brought back on USMNT legend Tab Ramos to get his take. Tab, welcome back to the show, my friend. Today, we're going to be talking about the USMNT because there is a huge tournament coming up this summer, the Gold Cup, which normally, I mean, I think it's kind of a big deal. Some people don't really put much stock into it. But I think with the way the USMNT has recently played, they have to have a good showing this coming Gold Cup. And they got two friendlies before the game. They're going to play Turkey and Switzerland, which Turkey, I think they changed their name the way they pronounce it. I don't know how they're wanting to be pronounced now, but either way, it doesn't really matter. They got two friendlies coming up this month, and then they will be playing in the Gold Cup. Real quick, how are you feeling about the USMNT right now heading into the summer? Hey, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of my videos. Now, back to the video.
No, well, I think I'm a little bit disappointed, like a lot of the fans, because of the recent showing against Panama and Canada. Right, we definitely expected a lot more, and only because I think at the beginning we were given Pochettino a little bit of the benefit of the doubt over the first 6 months, and there was some ups and downs. But I think there were a couple games in which they really showed that they could play well, where they had some solutions, like having Robinson as a left back but playing inside, and then coming at. So there was some good tactical movements there to add to the. I think the level of aggression that the team was starting to develop, and so we kind of, and maybe me, because I've been doing the games on TV all the time. Maybe my expectation for the Panama game was that, okay, now we're going to put it all together finally, and this is going to be, this is going to be the real beginning of Pochettino. And when we ended up losing to Panama in that game, in a game that we deserved to win, to be honest, but it was still not what we wanted. It was still not the team that we expected. It was still not the aggression and level of commitment that we wanted from each player on every single play, which is our culture, whether people like to say it or not. That's who we are as American players. Like, we don't, we want to win every battle. That's something that American players like to do, by the way. And that's, like, they get happy when you ask them to do stuff like this. Like when you ask them to go and, and so that was a disappointment, and now we go into the Canada game. The Canada game doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's a third place game that most players don't want to play. Unfortunately, we went into it having to win it. So now it made the players kind of try to push harder, but then we failed again. and in particular, we could not, for as long as the game was competitive and Canada didn't put it away, we actually couldn't get out of our own half. And that was really disappointing. I mean, and so now it leads into this summer. And in the summer, we'll have some tough games. But there's no question that at this point, I think what we want, Will, is we want results. We need to win games. I'm at a point now where it doesn't really matter how. Let's just win some games. We have South Korea, we have Turkey, as you said. Let's get through these games. Let's win. We're at a point where we just need to win.
No, I agree. You definitely need to build some momentum this summer. Have some positivity about Pochettino. I mean, you just spent $6 million annually on this guy to bring him over. Kind of a unique situation. Maybe a guy short-term, looking to coach short-term, maybe international ball, because he's a club coach, right? That's just what he is. That's what he's always been. And you want to make sure that he maximizes his opportunity here, and that he's not just here on a vacation, because after these performances, a lot of people were questioning what his commitment was to this team, if he was checked out, if he's just here to collect the check, whatever it may be. I want to see what he does at the Gold Cup before I make any judgment. I still think it's too early. A lot of people like to jump the gun and just go crazy after one or two bad performances or three bad performances. We haven't even got to see him coach Ballo yet. We haven't got this. I mean, we didn't have Ballo or Pepe at the last 2 games, our first 2 choices up top, which I think obviously makes a huge difference. You know, Josh Sargent obviously has been pretty good in the championship, but it hasn't really translated to the USMNT. And then Aji Mong from Charlotte, I don't think is really international team level. He's not a national team level player, in my opinion, at least not now. So I want to see what he does with a full squad. Sergio Dest, I think, is going to be back for the Gold Cup, if I'm not mistaken. I think he'll play. This is where I will really start to judge Pochettino as the USMNT manager. And I want to know, what do you think? Because I want to get into your time as a as a youth coach, because some of these guys on our team, some of the core guys you coached. So I want to talk a little bit about that, which I think is cool. And maybe, if you thought some of these guys were going to be as good as what they have been. But what do you think that we need to do at the goal? Do we have to win the Gold Cup to feel good about this? Do we have to win it this year?
Well, I'll start first with the with Pochettino, right? Because you mentioned, do we think this guy? We're starting to think this guy's on vacation, maybe. Well, I can guarantee you that's not the case. I think Pochettino is one of the greatest coaches in the world. I just think he's used to coaching a certain way, and maybe the not having the complete understanding of the culture is sometimes a drawback. Because he could potentially at Tottenham, he could walk through the door, and as soon as he walked in and he said this, that, and the other, everybody was, top shape, ready to go, and they would do what they're supposed to. And maybe with us, our players need a little bit more of a push. And it takes a while to figure those things out, right? So, but, whether somebody sees them watching a game in Argentina instead of being in England watching our guys, to be honest, I don't think that makes much of a difference. I think he knows what he's doing, and I'm not one to have to determine where he needs to be at what time to be considered a good coach or someone who cares. I'm sure he cares. No coach ever wants to lose. So I'm sure he doesn't want to lose, and he wants to do a great job. So having that out of the way, the Gold Cup, do we need to win it? I think we need to at least be close to winning it and play like exciting soccer where we feel like our players leave everything on the field. I think our fans are, and I'm not speaking for all our fans, but I know our fans pretty well because I've been doing this for a long time. And I think our fans want to see our players spent after they're done playing. Like, that's all they have. And if that means that you lose in the final, okay, well, that sucks. Or if it's Mexico, you don't want to lose to Mexico. All that stuff sucks. But in the end, when you see your players drenched and that they have nothing left and that you believe they gave everything they had, I'll be honest. I think our fans will be happy with that. But we haven't seen that yet. And we haven't seen the wins either. So when you don't see either, that's very bad. So do we have to win it? Well, if we continue to play the way we've been playing and maybe we make it a little bit better, we need to win it. Yeah, no doubt. But if we don't win it, we better leave a mark with our fans this summer that we left everything on the field.
Tony, Alexi, you, Eric, John, Landon, Clint, Michael Bradley, Tim Howard, all played with grit. All of you guys wore the badge with honor. You played with heart. You left it, like you're saying, all on the field. You said just by the end of the game, look like you're spent, like you just laid it all on the line, right? We don't get that sense with this team. We don't. I mean, some of these guys just look completely checked out or on cruise control, like it's an obligation more than a privilege to be there for the USMNT. That's the way I look at it sometimes. And I'm not saying that's how they feel, but that's just the way it looks sometimes. I just don't understand how we got to where we had all these players who had the passion, and now we have a bunch of guys who just seem like they don't care. Is that because we have put them on this pedestal, or is it just because it's the new generation?
I mean, it could be a little bit of a combination of both. I think it hasn't helped this team from the beginning, and I know the players pretty well. I think it hasn't helped the team being called the golden generation, and having the expectations for raising the bar higher than ever before. That's not easy. But at the same time, I think no one can argue that these players are more accomplished than any other generation outside of the national team, right? So they've gone to Europe. They play on big clubs. They do well for the most part. And I think because of that, the expectations are much higher. And unfortunately, they haven't delivered at the national team level. And that's what people care about the most. They care about their national team. They care about the badge, and that's how fans are. And I think, as far as that's concerned, they owe the fans, and they'll have to play for that. But the other thing is, I don't buy that they don't care. They do care. These players do care. They want to do well. I just hope that with all the things that have happened so far, that this summer will be the final push that really gains that momentum for us to get behind them. Because they're really, to be fair, they're likable guys. They're good guys. They're hard workers. They have all of the things that they need to be, our superstars. But it starts with working as hard as you can on the field and leaving it on the field and making sure that the fans see that.
Do you think there's an issue if, like, one of my favorite players to watch because of the heart he plays with is Diego Luna? He broke his nose in a game. He put some, I don't know if they were tampons or what they were, up his nose to stop the bleeding. Either way, but I think that made an impression on Pochettino that this guy he's willing to lay it on the line. He's a dog. He's on the pitch. He's going to do everything he can to win that game. Is it bad that if, because of his passion he plays with, because some USMNT fans, there's a stigma. If you don't play at a certain team or a certain league, they don't want anything to do with you. This guy plays for Real Salt Lake in MLS, and I think there's a chance, Tab, that he could get significant minutes at the Gold Cup, because I do think he has worked his way into being a favorite of Pochettino. Is there something wrong with an MLS player starting for this USMNT with every other player and talent we have these days?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you want to start your best players, the players who are in best form. I mean, what would you rather have? A player that's leading their team in MLS and is putting the team on their shoulders sometimes, as Diego has done. And by the way, I don't know Diego Luna personally, but I've been sort of on board with pushing for him for a year now, because I think he does have that mentality of the past a little bit. And not that it's a great thing, because there was a lot of bad things about us too, but he does have that grit. And I think I'd rather have a guy like that that's willing to put his team on his shoulder than have a player who plays in Europe, but is just a support player who barely touches the ball. I'm not sure if that explains it well, because I don't want to disrespect the players who are playing in Europe, because that's really difficult to play in Europe. But yeah, I don't think it matters whether a player plays in MLS or somewhere else. I think it's about talent, and in the end, I'm sure that Mauricio Pochettino is going to choose he's going to choose the 11 players that give him the best chance to win games. That's the only thing that matters.
No, and I agree with that. But there's like one specific scenario situation is USMNT fans are clamoring for Malik Tman to start. Mm-hmm. And Malik Tman just hasn't really done anything when he's played for the USMNT. He just hasn't. Now, he's been good at PSV. He's been really good. I think he's even reported to maybe have a $40 million move to another club. So his profile is higher than what Diego Luna's is. But when they put on the kit, Luna plays better for the USMNT. And I think that it's hard for some fans to grasp that, because they just automatically assume if you're playing for a better team in a better league and you're a good player for them, you're just going to be better for the USMNT. And that's just not always the case. I think you got to roll with the hot hand. And Luna, maybe he does get a move soon to Europe. I think he's only 21 years old. He's uber talented. He's got all the potential. I think he could be a very good player. But I think that I don't care. And you mentioned about not playing for your team. Maybe if you're just a squad player for a big team, I just think it doesn't matter. Any of that stuff does not matter. When you put on the USMNT kit, it's all about how you perform when you do that. And I don't stargaze about who you're playing for and how well you're doing for that team. It's just all about what you're doing when you wear that badge for the USMNT.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think what you're saying about fans, asking for Tillman to play, but it really could be any other player over an MLS player. I think the fans are just trying to figure out, according to where they play, who the best players are, because the bottom line is the team is not winning. So if the team was winning, then it'd be a much harder. Okay, well, the 11 guys started, whoever they are, whether they play in China or wherever, those are the guys playing. You can't argue with wins. The problem is we're not winning, and the team is not convincing fans. So the fans are looking for what makes sense. And what makes sense is Tillman plays in the Dutch league. And in theory, I think people would think that the Dutch league is better than MLS, and it is Europe, and other teams want him. Why would we want to play Diego Luna, who plays at RSL? In theory, if you put that on paper, you're like, well, yeah, we have to play Tillman. But maybe you don't consider Tillman didn't really grow up in the U.S. Maybe he doesn't understand like the culture here of actual rivalries with Panama, with like El Salvador, with like, it's like, oh, those countries. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But there's a lot of other factors to playing for the national team than just showing up and playing for a team. And, I have a nice uniform and I'm next to these guys. It's going to be great. I think Luna feels the national team, and you can tell. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, especially from where he started off, because he had the path that a lot of our former USMNT players had of just having to prove themselves. I mean, he started off in USL with the Locomotives, got to move to RSL, had to work his way up into a starting role. So he has a very blue collar background. I think it kind of puts a chip on his shoulder. That's just my opinion. Hopefully he balls out for the Gold Cup. Now, I want to ask you a little bit about your time as a technical director and the youth coach, and then we'll finish it off with the World Cup in 2026. Of all the players you coached at the youth level, because you were the coach from, I think, 2011 to 2019, if I'm not mistaken, with the youth team.
Yep.
Yeah. So you coached a lot of these guys. Is there one player that maybe is better than you expected from your time of coaching them? Because a lot of these core guys, I want to say you coach literally probably the core of this team. McKinney, Pulisic. I mean, I think you coached a lot of these players. Is there a guy that really has maybe even been better than you expected?
Well, I mean, they were all extremely talented. Christian Pulisic really, really stood out when Jurgen decided that we would bring him to the senior national team, because at that time, I think he was 16 or just turning 17. And I think the first time we played him, it might have been against Argentina in Houston. But already you could tell in the training sessions that he was at a different level than everybody else. Like his movement, his balance of his body as he turned and as he made people miss was truly different. So I think Christian was the superior talent, no question, above everyone else. So the fact that he has had a lot of success, for example, this year at Milan, and that he's had big transfers from Dortmund to Chelsea and all those things, they didn't happen by accident. It didn't happen by luck. They happened because he's just a really an amazing player. Other guys that you could talk about is, I always speak about, how Tyler Adams' physicality, his way to get to plays more than anyone else, was truly amazing. It was truly at a different level than everyone else. And, and every once in a while, since you're at the youth national teams and I was there for so long, every once in a while when, everybody's kind of fighting for positions, and then you see a guy come in and they're here, you really notice it. And Tyler was one of those guys, because he was I think he had just showed up to the national team, the U20s. And I think so Tyler never played for the U20s at the right age. He only played for me when he was 3 years younger than everybody else, because by the time he was the right age to play with U20s, he wasn't even allowed to come anymore. So he played as he was young. And I brought him in because, and when he came in, I think the first time he played for us, I think I made him captain at halftime, because I said, everybody needs to be like this guy. He really portrays the culture of who we are, right? And of course, there's going to be some skillful players. There's going to be some tall players that just kick the ball out of bounds sometimes. But he's in the center there, and he has like all the values of who we want to be. Tyler has those. That's how we felt. So I would say that's the second one. And then McKinney's ability to get from box to box. He was like having three players at once. I mean, he was really at a different level. And then I could go on, like Weah speed. I like playing Weah on the left wing high and keeping him high, because with his speed, he was really unstoppable there. With the, we had Ledesma and Alex Mendez and a lot of guys that were really good on the ball, and they could always find him on those through balls. He was really unstoppable there. So there have been some who didn't make it. Guys like Omar Salgado, for example. He was a great number 9. He was drafted number 1 by Vancouver, but the injuries didn't allow him to be as great as he needed to be. Ben Spencer was the same, another tall number 9. Didn't quite make it. And after that, I would have to say Josh Sargent. I knew Josh has been taking a beating lately with the fans because obviously he doesn't score for the national team. But I have to tell you, regardless of what people say about Josh, he's a tremendous talent. He is a tremendous talent, and he's a very solid number 9. Unfortunately, we need him to score a couple goals so that fans can be on board, and he's gotten a lot of opportunities. And we judge forwards on goals. And so, unfortunately, he is where he is, but he's a tremendous talent. So after that, I could go on and on about other talents that came through, but those are the guys that really, I think, shined a little brighter than everybody else.
Well, one of the, I guess, positions that I think we are kind of struggling with, which has always been our bread and butter as the USMNT, is goalkeeper. I think Matt Turner is the likely number 1 for the 2026 World Cup, but he isn't really getting as much minutes as you would like your number 1 to get. I mean, I think playing is very important for a goalkeeper. It's not ideal to not have your goalkeeper getting minutes. But back in the day, we just had so many great quality goalkeepers playing the Premier League. Casey Keller, Brad Friedel, Tim Howard, all these guys. And there's obviously, there's obviously other players. That Tony Miola was obviously a great goalkeeper as well. But there have been so many goalkeepers. It's been our bread and butter. I think it's one of the things that always kept us in games against certain opponents who might have more attacking talent than us, because we had that force in goal. But it feels like our identity, the thing that made us competitive in a lot of these games, has kind of dwindled. We just don't have that kind of guy anymore in goal.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, because in the past, as much as we want to take credit because of all the grit that we had and all that, and of course we had that, and we fought with everybody, and we beat Brazil, and we beat England, and we beat Argentina in a real game. Like we won a lot of big games in the past, but also we, like you said, we also had goalkeepers who made the big saves at the right time. And, obviously Matt Turner is a good goalkeeper. Ethan Horvath is a good goalkeeper. These are all good goalkeepers. Otherwise, they don't make it to the national team. But we just don't have the outstanding goalkeepers that we had in the past. And there's no secret. And through the national teams, I have to say, through my, let's say, 8 years through the national teams and being technical director, the biggest talent that went through was, without question, Zach Steffen. Zach was the best. Zach had a lot of the qualities of all of those great keepers. Not sure what happened he got bought by Man City, loaned out. Like, things haven't worked out with Zach. I'm still hoping, and I think I said in an interview about 6 months ago, that I'm still hoping that he has a great year this year and that somehow that brings him back into the fold, because, he has good feet and he's great under the post, and he can come out for crosses. He has all the key ingredients to be a great keeper. But unfortunately, he has to show it. Now he's in his 30s, and he's 30 this year. Zach's a 9. I remember all the players by the year they're born. So Zach's a 95. So yeah. He's 30 this year. But yeah, he's running out of time. This is the year for Zach. Hopefully he gets a chance, and hopefully there's no more mistakes and he moves forward, because I think he's the best. And then after that, I'd have to say Jonathan Klinsmann has been doing well this year in Italy in Serie B. He's had some ups and downs, but physically he's a specimen. He's got great feet. He can get the balls in the corner. He can jump higher than any other goalkeeper on crosses. And this year he finally had a good year. So, maybe he's in the picture at some point.
Well, I hope to have you back on for that episode, because I want to do something more in depth about this. But one of the guys who was supposed to be the heir, the guy who was going to be the goalkeeper for maybe 4 World Cup cycles, was Gaga Selenina. They were heralding him as the crown jewel goalkeeping prospect, and he was going to be the guy, like maybe the best goalkeeper we've ever had. He gets sold to Chelsea. He is a victim of the Chelsea loan army, where he just keeps getting loaned out. Do you think he would have been better suited? Listen, hindsight's obviously 2020, but do you think he would have been better suited just to stay in MLS and play Tab, just before he had made a move like that, because he was just so raw, that hadn't played enough games. And I just think that everything that's happened to him has just completely halted his development.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, hindsight's 2020. We look at it now. He needs games, right? So, but that's what happens sometimes. I think sometimes agents don't necessarily care about what it's going to look like 10 years down the road. They're looking at now. And when you have an opportunity to go to Chelsea and everybody's convincing you that this is the right way to go, I guess maybe I would have done the same. Maybe I would have said, hey, I'm going to go to Chelsea because maybe Gaga his goal was to break into the first team. And I think when he went over there, I think Kepa was the goalkeeper at Chelsea. So it's not like they had a sure thing in the goal. And maybe he thought, hey, I do well somewhere else. And he goes in. So we don't know what the thinking is behind it. Obviously, he needed games. And by the way, he's not done. So now he just needs a solid year of playing and he'll be back in the picture. And who knows if he's not in the picture for next year, if in September he signs with a team and he plays the full time. And, you never know. He's still part of the picture because he's still a great goalkeeper.
He's only 20 years old.
Yeah.
He's only 20 years old.
And keepers don't really get good until 28, 29, 30, and then they play 10 more years. So, I mean, there's time. There's certainly time.
And that's why with Zach, even though he did have some years where he didn't play, he was really good at Columbus, got the move to Man City, like you said, and then he went on loan to a club in the Bundesliga. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But he's still, he's only 30. He might not even be 30 yet. He might be still 29. He might be a late 95 birthday. So he could still, he still has a long time to play. Who knows? Maybe he's been pretty good at Colorado. Before I let you go, 2026, what do you think would be considered a success for the 26 World Cup? For the USMNT?
I would say success would be a quarterfinal appearance. It's obviously a great surprise would be a semifinal appearance, and I think an average World Cup would be around a 16. Kind of like that's where we usually every other team has pretty much done that. You would expect that we'll do that this time. I think there's more rounds before, so there's some maybe easier games at the beginning, but in the end, I think we need to make it at least to the final 16 to equal at the very least other teams. But I think success would be quarterfinals. If we make it to the quarters this time, because the World Cup is so big, it'll be a nice long run for our fans. And I think I would consider that a success.
I agree. Tab, I just hope that we are able to perform to the level we expect. In 2014, we had a less talented roster. Good players that played their asses off. Can't deny that. They had some grit on that team in 2014. They made it out of a group with Portugal, Germany, and Ghana. That is the definition of a group of death. And keep in mind, this is when Germany won the World Cup and Portugal literally had a prime Ronaldo, 28, 29 years old. So that was a tough, and Ghana's no slouch either. Ghana was a very good team at that point. We made it out of a group like that. I think that's why our fans have such high expectations, because we got way better players now. Why are we not, exceeding what we did in 2014?
Okay, but I'm gonna have to stop you there, because I think saying we have way better players now, I don't think that's the case. I don't think there's an equal to Jermaine Jones on this team. I'm not sure there's an equal to Michael Bradley on this team. I'm not sure there's an equal to Clint Dempsey on this team. So there's no equal for Tim Howard.
No.
So of course, this is a good team. That was a good team, and that team also had grit. And so I think that's where the balance is.
Yeah. So hopefully, because we talked about this in our previous video, 2026 is a huge deal. Have to have a good performance, especially if soccer wants to go in this country. We cannot have a situation where we bounce out early, look terrible, because it's just going to, I don't want to say halt the growth, but it's going to hurt it exponentially. I remember in 2014, World Cup wasn't here. It was in Brazil, but it was in the same time zone, essentially. Soccer was popping in the United States in 2014. It was crazy. Everybody was at the bars watching game, on the streets, USMNT, all types of gear everywhere. It's going to be like that on steroids, I think, in 2026. And we need to capitalize on that. And hopefully we do, Eric. excuse me, Tab. Sorry,
Yeah.
I had Eric on my mind. Sorry, Tab.
It's
Hopefully,
fun calling me Eric. Actually, it's an honor for me
I
to be
talked to Eric. I talked to Eric quite a bit, so I'm sorry.
But I agree with you. It will be. I think we will go to the quarterfinals, and I think it will be great. I think the country will be flying next summer. We got to start our momentum now, though.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate your time, Tab. Make sure you follow him at Ramos Tab on X for great insight on the USMNT. Hopefully, we have you back on soon, maybe even after the Gold Cup. Appreciate your time, my friend. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.